of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you very much, Rob. I believe next is roll call. Jared, can we have a roll call, please?
Barb Barker.
Here.
Tammy Blank.
Here.
Cinda Brode.
Here.
Julia Tamarki Kukuro.
Present.
Tom Harley. Mr. Kerr.
Present.
Mrs. Leeper.
Present.
Mrs. Lowry.
Present.
Mr. Schroeth.
Here.
Jared, I'm here.
Okay.
It
Sounds like Tom just checked in. Okay, I'd like to welcome all our visitors this evening. Thank you again for joining us in a virtual meeting here at a Google Hangout. We are going to discuss towards the end of the meeting the possibility of trying to get back to more of a regular type board meeting, but there'll be more on that later. I have no message this evening. Jared, are there any public comments tonight?
No, sir.
Oh, wait, Jared, may I? I'm sorry, I didn't submit my name, but may I make a public comment?
That's up to the board president.
Mr. President, I'm sorry, I did not submit my name in time. May I make a public comment?
Yes, Josie, go ahead.
This concerns what's on the agenda for tonight. I believe it is, there are two motions concerning the roofing at East Pike Building, and
Josie, your microphone cut out. You have to start again.
You muted yourself, yeah.
oh, well, sorry. I'm looking at this large project that is, you have two proposals on the agenda tonight. I believe one to repair and one to replace. I'm wondering if it's wise at this time. I understand that the monies are there, that you have the money in the funding for the larger replacement costs. But I'm just wondering if there's wisdom in undertaking such a large project now with all the variables we're hoping won't be there in the fall, but very well could be. Perception is everything. And I'm just hoping that you'll think before you commit to such a large project that might have repercussions within the community. Thank you.
Okay, Josie, thank you. Like I said, maybe we'll be back to a regular schedule and you know, kind of avoid some of these bumps here. Is there anybody from IAEA, ASME, SGA, or Stuka that are online that need to make a comment or a report? Nothing heard. Superintendent's report. Mike, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple things I want to go over. First, I want to thank our state rep and state senator. We had a meeting with all Indiana County superintendents and several board members. Some from our district attended, and we had a good conversation about what reopening looks like, and we had a chance to advocate for our thoughts, our kids, our community. And it was a good discussion. So I appreciate them for being good listeners. I think that's part of being good government, being, you know, a good government part. And I appreciate them for taking time. We spent about an hour and 20 minutes with them. So we appreciate that. On our social media and as well as our website, sir, we just posted information today for families about grab and go summer lunches. So I encourage our families to take a look at that. Also, at our academic committee meeting, we talked about partnering up with the Mid-Atlantic Equity Consortium about a new paradigm to look at the way we do parent-teacher teams and conferences. So the committee issued their support behind that. So I'm proud of that work to really engage our families in a different lens, rather than just saying, hey, your kid's doing well or this is not going well. We have a chance to let them know what we're doing programming-wise, curriculum-wise, and make them a part of the process rather than just dictate them. So I'm quite happy about that. And most importantly, it was a lot of great things going on at the end of the year. I attended Ike, along with Mr. Heinrich, Ike, and Ben Franklin's end of the year parade, which was remarkable, and the kids were excited, and they were so glad to see their teachers. And then additionally with that, I also got to go to graduation. And my message to graduation, I think, is more timely than ever when we start talking about the need to provide hope and kindness to our community, to our Commonwealth, and to our country. When you look what's going on across the world, I think those two traits are now needed more than ever. And I think our society has to take a step back and realize what kindness means to us. And I want to applaud the board for allowing this administration to go down the road of looking at what is equity. What does that mean as a Commonwealth? What does that mean as a community? What does it mean as a school district? Is it mere rhetoric, or are we actually going to live up to that? Are our policies and procedures going to reflect what equity really stands for? So I'm glad that you empower us to go down that road and really start having a hard look at how we do things. And the Mid-Atlantic Equity Consortium has been a big partner and big key in that. And I'm proud of that work we're doing. Additionally, I think it also verifies the hard work behind the SEL work we're doing, the need to have kids, teach kids how to be kind to one another, understand their emotions, and understand it's okay to have feelings. Feelings are meaningful, they're mentionable, but we have to deal with them in a productive manner. And I'm proud of the work we're doing, because I think now when you look across society, it's needed more than ever. And I got to be honest with this entire board, including you, Mr. President, it's close to my heart. You know, my son, I love him to death. He's my pride and joy. And it scares me every night, sir, that people may judge him or look at him differently because of the color of his skin, his not his character. And that worries me. And I'm proud of the work we're doing, not only as an educator, but as a father. And if you ask me what's needed, again, it's going to be kindness. It's going to be compassion. It's ability to engage in dialogue, ability to work together. And the steps this board's making and the steps that this board is taking is reflective of that. So I'm proud to be a part of the Indiana School District. And we have a lot of work to do, right? To be able to talk about racism, to be able to talk about equity. What does that mean? But where a lot of schools may run away from those conversations, you've been running towards them. And it's reflective in our practices, our procedures, our policies, and there's work to be done. The fact that I'm most proud of is that we're not afraid of that work. So as a father of 4 beautiful kids and one who just happens to be Black, I'm blessed to know that I have work for a board who loves all kids. Because you know what? Don't say all means all if you're not truly going to mean that, right? You don't ever say, hey, some kids will learn, some won't. We don't do that. All means all. And I'm proud to know that I have a board. I work for a board and a district and a group of teachers and a community that truly loves one another and truly puts the best interests of kids forward. And I just wanted to really give you my thanks, sir. And I mean that deeply and heartfelt. And with that said, sir, I would like to defer some of my comments because I could talk about this all night, but I would like to talk to Wade and have Wade say a few words, because I know he wanted to thank the board members for all their hard work on Friday as well, where you spend the entire day passing out diplomas, making something meaningful out of this pandemic for these kids. And Mr. McElhaney, can you take a few minutes, sir?
I can. Thank you, Mr. Vukovich. And just wanted to have an opportunity, and thanks for doing so, to thank the board members who were able to come and take time out of their day and take part in that diploma distribution activity. I thought it went over very well, and appreciate the board members taking time out of their busy day to come here and to confer on our students individually. Almost 200 diplomas to students, and to engage in conversation, take interest in what they're doing, and to wish them well and congratulate them. That was meant a lot for our students and our school, to have board members to individually confer those diplomas to our students. Also like to thank Ms. Tracy Sexton, our faculty and our staff, who made that activity possible here at the school, and the support of the students and parents who were patient, practicing social distance here to pick up their diplomas and to participate in some of those activities. Furthermore, I'd like to thank Mr. Pushkar and his staff and Dr. Laird for the virtual commencement celebration that we had. It was a very nice commemoration for our students, and a lot of time, a lot of work put into that, trying to hold off the last possible minute so we can include as many students who were eligible to graduate in that video. And then capped off the evening with a community-based, organized parade. And we have Ms. Brandy Ports here. I don't know if she's able to unmute her microphone, but she is one of our school bus drivers, and almost single-handedly started a campaign for our students to participate in a send-off parade that wound its way through down Philadelphia Street, and then they were able to drive through here through the loop in a high school for a commemorative send-off. We had our teachers, our faculty, our staff, administrators attended that. Thank you, Mr. Vukovic, for being here, as well as you, Mr. Heinrich, for that diploma activity. But it was, all in all, I think it was a very nice way to commemorate our seniors graduating as best we could on that Friday. So thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being able to be there to promote it. Thank you, Chauncey, for helping with that as well.
Thank you, Mr. McElhaney, and board. Let me just remind you, I believe Miss Brandy Ports is on the call today, and if she can't unmute, that's fine. But we just want to issue our sincere thank you for her organizing. It was a really cool moment. I really enjoyed seeing the kids come in. They were excited. It was pumped. It was really nice. We made a great moment out of a terrible situation regarding the pandemic. The kids were awesome. The families were. So it's a moment to be proud of.
And if I could add one more thing, Mr. Vukovic, sorry about that. I just wanted to say that, Ms. Ports enlisted the help of our first responder community. We had police and fire who were escorting and motorcading the students to make it memorable, but also safe.
We'll turn it back to you, Mr. President.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks, Wade. I do want to also add my congratulations on a job well done to Wade and the senior high staff. It was kind of I helped participate in the handing out of the diplomas, and it was a little more intimate and a little more personal, doing it kind of one-on-one versus the assembly line that we've done in the past. So I thought it was a rather cool event, and was glad I was able to participate. Again, Wade, and to you and your entire staff that worked on that, job well done. So Ron, solicitor's report, it's your turn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just talking a little bit about, as you know, that they released that there's a health and safety plan considerations, and what the school board has to have a health and safety plan presented to them so that they may approve it. And that will prompt us in the direction we want to see for extracurriculars and academics for next school term. One of the things that we're having a little bit of concern over is that PDE is really not putting any guidance out, or the guidance they're giving is somewhat muddied. So the only thing that I can tell this board, the community, as a definite would be that there needs to be a pandemic coordinator or pandemic team. They have to create a health and safety plan, and that plan has to be approved by the board. That is about the max guarantee that we can give right now from PDE, because that's the only obligation that they've set for these boards. What we're seeing is it's going to come down to a local decision, which ultimately puts a lot of pressure on the local school board. One of the things that I do want to reiterate for the board and the administration moving forward is, a lot of school districts are looking at some sort of dual plan as it relates to an online and physical platform, just to make sure that, as they refer to them as flexible instructional days, if anybody's heard that or referred to that, right now under the code, we have a limit of those flexible instructional days. So we're truly looking at our legislators as a way to create a little bit more flexibility, because right now it currently does not exist. So for what it's worth, our team, we're trying to get on board with the legislation to try to push some legislation. And even though it's already at the 11th hour here, trying to push something towards having that dual online platform to create flexibility for schools for the next term. But again, the only guarantee I can really give for a recommendation, and everything else being somewhat guidance and or let's just say guidelines, is creating that pandemic team. That's the only obligation we have right now. And finally, I do want to congratulate Mr. Vukovic. I was on a call just recently, and they were saying that Mr. Vukovic created this survey that he's been putting out for Indiana Area School District, and that schools have actually been using that survey and trying to push it forward because of how well it's been working. So I like to, when I hear things like that coming out of someone I represent, I always like to give kudos where they are. So kudos to him and to the board for pushing out that survey. That's it for me, Mr. President. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ron, and yes, kudos to Mike and his entire team for leading the way. Okay, so we have one presentation tonight. Jared, a budget update. You're up, Jared. Jared, are you on the line here?
Yep, sir, I'm gonna bring up my Google slideshow real quick.
Okay.
Can everybody see that okay?
Jared, it's still loading. There you go. Now it came up, sir.
Okay. Just going to go through a real quick update on the budget. Mr. President, Mrs. Vice President asked me just to do a quick budget update tonight as we're nearing the end of the school year here and our deadline June 30th for actually approving a budget. So I'll just briefly go through a couple highlights of where we're at. These are just a couple discussion topics, and we will post this presentation online for everybody tomorrow as well. Just closing out 1920 as we near the end. We are looking at a difference in budgeted revenues compared to estimated revenues being down $278,000, mainly due to the estimated cuts we're planning on taking due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We reduced earned income by $250,000 compared to our budgeted revenue in that area, as well as $35,000 less in real transfer tax, which is we get for the sale of properties, which we would assume would be down due to real estate and everything not being able to be processed during the past month. And then we also are showing a reduction of less than a $200,000 reduction in delinquent real estate taxes. Two areas of the revenue that are
Looks like Jared has dropped off the line. We'll wait for him to come back now.
Walter, could we go ahead and take care of some other business while we wait for Jared to come back?
Yeah, I think so. I believe we have an approval of the minutes and agenda, minutes from last meeting and agenda from for this meeting. Can I have a motion to accept minutes and approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any questions, comments, or discussion on that? Okay, I will vote in the negative here, and if anybody objects to those, please say no at this point. Nothing heard. The chair assumes that the motion carries unanimously.
Jared's back.
Welcome back, Jared.
Sorry about that. I don't have the best of internet out here. What I'll do instead of putting that, well, like I said, we can present the, I will put this budget presentation up for everybody to see tomorrow, but I'll just quickly go down through and highlight a couple things here. Right now, the 1920 budget is looking to come possibly to the positive, where when we passed it back last June, we were looking at a $1.8 million deficit. And a lot of that has to do with a bunch of different, mainly the expenditure side is coming in a lot lower. A lot of that can be attributed to the last couple of months of some savings in sub costs, as well as transportation, those type of things. So we are hopeful that the year will continue to come in positive, 1920, as we close that out. We'll have final numbers in October on that. Right now, as far as the 2021, we are still projecting a possible budget deficit of $2.4 million. What has kind of caused that is a continued decrease in. Yes, sir.
Sure. Before you go on to the 2021, and I know you don't have the final numbers, but can you give the board an estimate of where where it's coming in at right now for the 2019-2020 year? Okay, you may have missed my question there, Jared. The question was, I know you don't have the exact numbers yet, but can you give us an estimate as to what you think the budget surplus or deficit for the current fiscal year is going to wind up being at this point?
Yeah, I think we'll be possibly coming out to the positive around $100,000. There's still a lot of expenses that certainly have to come in. We did cut off spending on supplies and different items.
That's close enough. Give us a ballpark. Thank you.
Yeah. And like I said, the deficit we're looking at for this year is still, or for 2021 is 2.4 million, due to a lot of items which we will cover at the next Audit and Finance Committee meeting on June 22nd. But I do want to remind the board and the public that of that 2.4, roughly 415,000 of it is right now in budgetary reserve. In those positions, that money is there for 4 teaching positions at this point, which will go unfilled or plan to go unfilled for next year. But we are leaving them in the budget just in case at some point we do have to fill them. So if we don't have to fill them, that greatly reduces that $2.4 million deficit down to around 2 million. As we talked at policy and personnel, there's possibly another position which will go unfilled, which would save us another $100,000, which would bring that deficit under 2 million. And then we do have some additional funding that we will talk about at the Audit and Finance Committee meeting in 2 weeks that could help close that gap as well. But we'll have a full presentation, possibly in person, next in 2 weeks at the Audit and Finance Committee and the board meeting. Sorry for all that cutting out there. Any questions?
Okay, fellow members of the board, do you have any questions or comments on Jared's presentation or specific information you'd like to see from him in the next day or so?
I'd like to congratulate
Nothing heard at this point.
Walter. I'd like to congratulate.
Go ahead.
I'd like to congratulate Jared and the administration for pulling rabbit out of the hat in this fiscal year, and I hope he has another trick up his sleeve to do the same thing for next.
We worked very hard this year to save a lot of money, and hopefully we can do that next year as well. So,
yeah, maybe it'll even be 2 rabbits, Tom. All right. Nothing else heard. We'll move on to board reports. UTA, Indiana County Technology Center, you're up.
The ICTC met on May the 26th. And we discussed some personnel issues. We hired a part-time as-needed adult education medical assisting and phlebotomy instructor, and decided to advertise and post for a safety and security officer. I did see that posted in the local paper. We voted to approve the 2021 Indiana County Technology Center budget, identified depositories for the academic year 2021. In addition, they opened a separate account for the CARES Act funding, and accepted a donation. We got some updates on their programs, and also discussed their senior ceremony, which was held on May the 27th at 6 o'clock. It was a pretty short meeting, and our next meeting is later on this month.
Okay, thank you. Barb, IU 28, it's your turn.
Okay, we had a meeting on May 19th. It was fairly regular, some hirings of paraprofessionals and some some budget approvals. And so at the Aaron IU, there's multiple budget approvals through the year. And then the next meeting here in June, they're going to try to do an in-person meeting. So we'll see how that one goes. That's it. It was a fairly short meeting.
Okay, Tom, looks like academic and extracurricular, your turn.
Okay, we had a meeting on June 1st. Covered many topics. The first one we did was the Giddings security contract. We reviewed that. That's being reduced from 40 to 25,000. The committee felt it was important to continue that contract. Their guidance has been very useful. We also talked about the IU 28 guest teacher program. It's again, the committee recommended it, and I believe it's on the agenda today. We also talked about the boys cross country co-op agreement with Seeds of Faith. I see we also have the girls co-op for Seeds of Faith. This is a small number of students. I suspect the majority of them live in our district. The AD told us that it would not negatively impact the cross country numbers. It would not keep an Indiana Area School District player from running. The committee also recommends that. We heard from Dr. Carmen Rudland, Associate Director of the Collaborative Action for Family Engagement Center. Mike and the administration have managed to finagle a $72,000 grant to pay for this event. It's looking at the way that we interface with parents and families, and trying to do it on a more robust platform than twice a year sitting down for 3 minutes with a teacher. So, Mike, I'm sure you can add something to that.
Yes, sir. It's just more authentic, more transparent, and more meaningful way of doing parent-teacher conferences where they have a greater understanding, not how their child's doing, but what's happening in school and how it can help both the school and their child at home. So it's really strengthening that partnership, sir.
Okay. Did you want to say anything about the guest teacher program?
No, it's a nice resource as, everyone's facing a sub shortage in subs. This is another way to have more subs available to us to help us meet the daily demands.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. We began looking at a health physical education program called the Platform. It's an app that the students log on to and categorize the workouts. It works with remote learning, with on-site learning. The recommendation to the committee was that we would try it for 500 students for the first 15 months at about $1,275. There was some discussion about, oh, I see we got a different number in there now.
Yes, sir. The committee requested that I look into what it would cost for 800 students for the entire year, this summer, this school year, next summer. That is the cost. It was about $1 a student to add the extra students. So,
yeah, the feeling on the committee was why limit it to 500 if it's a useful program, do it for everybody in the high school. And so that's the proposal on the table for tonight. We had some discussion about the summer catch-up camp. And Mike, I believe that's the 25,000 from United Way.
That's correct, sir.
And we also talked about expanding that if that was possible, if we had the demand. We didn't want to stand in front of kids needing to catch up this summer. We thought there was a pretty big need, and the unit cost on this was very low. We were pretty excited about this program getting started and off the ground. Hey, would you care to add anything, Mike?
No, sir. To talk to the solicitor's report about the need for a health and safety plan, that's why we're working so hard to get this approved. So in case we would ever want to do live instruction during the summer, I cannot do that until I have this plan approved. But it's a great opportunity to help those kids catch up, and there's some flexibility here that we may be able to include 4th and 5th graders as well, sir. So great work by all.
Great. We went on to some non-agenda items. We discussed reopening the playgrounds. We technically be able to do that on July 1st. The governor has issued some standards to do that on. We asked the administration to look into that, modify the signing, and open the playgrounds at a appropriate time. Mike, I'm lost at this one. What's the PIL course? Can you help me with that?
Yes, the administration wrote a Pennsylvania-inspired leadership program course that will be made available to all principals, superintendents, or anyone requiring Act 45 hours in the Commonwealth based on social emotional learning and how to cope with the reopening of schools. And we partner up with one of the experts in the country, Dr. Mark Greenberg from Penn State, sir.
Okay, thanks, Mike. We did discuss summer conditioning, sports in the fall season, and with an eye toward reopening that sometime after July 1st. There's certainly no indication from PIAA or PDE that there will be no fall season this year. So we need to get prepared for that. Certainly no decision is needed tonight on that, but it is up for discussion, and we certainly need to decide that this month. We also heard from you, Mike, and the group about the 2021 school year and how it's changing. So, do you want to talk about that for a moment or two?
Yes, sir. We sent out an email to families with their options for next year, which is a traditional model, 100% online, or a hybrid model. And now we're taking that plan and we're going to cross-analyze that with the health and safety requirements. And at the next week's meeting at the Buildings and Grounds, we'll be hopeful we're able to present that health and safety plan and how they're both are connected and aligned. And what's powerful from this is it's June 8th, and our families are already aware of the options made in front of them. And please spread the word that we're giving families the time to make their decision. We don't need to know till August 1st, as there's a lot in this decision. So our goal is not to overwhelm, but our goal is to inform. And that's exactly what we're doing, sir.
Okay, very good. Any questions on the agenda? On the minutes? Moving back to the agenda, Walter, I'd like to make a motion that the board approves Article 5.2, 5.3, 5.4, and 5.5 dealing with tickets and events. These are all from proposed for 2021. These numbers are all from last year. And these were not discussed in committee, but I don't see any reason why these can't be approved. I need a second on that on those motions.
Second.
Any discussion, Walter?
Okay, so we have, okay, good. Was that you?
Yes, it was me.
We can't hear you, Walter. Walter, we can't hear you.
Do you want to, okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
So do you want to just do 5.2 to 5.5?
Yep.
Or do you want to go all the way to 5.12?
No, let's do 5.2 to 5.5.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Is there any comments, questions, or further discussion on those four motions? Okay, nothing heard. We'll again vote in the negative. If you object to any of those motions, please say no at this time. Okay, nothing heard. The chair assumes that the silence is unanimous approval by the board. Go ahead, Tom, with 5.6 through 5.12.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the security contract in 5.6. We approve the two co-op agreements with Seeds of Faith in 5.7 and 5.8. We approve the 5.9, the HPE program adoption at $1,935. The 5.10, we approve the summer catch-up camp. And 5.11, we approve the academic parent-teacher teams. And 5.12, the informed learning options for reopening. Are there any discussions on any of these items? I'm sorry, I need a second first.
I'll second it, but I would like some clarification on 5.8, please. 5.8 needs to indicate that pay to participate, if that's something that all of our students pay, students in a co-op would pay that as well. Currently, the way it's worded, it says, no Indiana area school district resident should be charged when participating in an extracurricular activity through a co-op agreement. And my understanding from the committee meeting was they would still be required to pay what our students pay through pay to participate, but would not pay the per student, per participant cost for out of district residents.
Correct.
So we need to clarify that.
Yes, Ms. Lowry, the motion is just that they wouldn't pay that co-op fee.
That's not what it says, though. I know that's what you intend, but that's not what it says.
They'd be charged when participating through a co-op agreement. So we can put in there, accept the pay to participate fee if that would.
Yep, that would work.
So I would, at the end of that sentence, could you say that they would still be responsible for the pay to participate fee?
Yep.
Okay. So changing that motion, that based on the recommendation of the committee, the board approves that no Indiana area school district resident shall be charged when participating in an extracurricular activity through a co-op agreement. They, however, will pay for the pay for participation fee. Are we good?
Yep.
Is there any, I think we still need a second on these motions.
No, I seconded it.
Okay, Luke is in. Any other discussion?
Okay, at this point, at this point, are there any other comments, questions, or further discussion, as Tom asked, on these motions?
I'd like to know.
Mr. President, I would like I would like to point out that I shared the list of teachers being hired for the summer catch-up camp with all the board members. I'd be happy to put it up on the screen if you'd like to see it. Our recommendation at this time for number 510, item 510, would be to hire all 9 teachers who applied. The reason being is that the registrations for the summer catch-up camp for the K-3 program is about 80 right now, and which gives us the wiggle room to offer this program to the 4-5s as well. And the only cost increase would be the cost of one teacher, which would be about $3,500. And of course, if we don't get the registrations from the 4-5s, you know, those people would not work those hours, and we would, you know, obviously not have to pay them for time they did not work.
The committee certainly supports the expansion of this program to the 4 and 5 group. So, and if that's if we can do that, it only costs us $3,500. What a great buy.
Okay, are there any other questions and or comments related to Rob Heinrich's further clarification there? Cindy, you wanted to say something?
Rob answered my question. I wanted to know how many students were signing up for it.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I think we need to press on with this as much as we can. Obviously, the district is still reeling from the shutdown, and we've got to try to do as much catch up between now and then as we can. Is there any other further discussion, questions, or comments on these motions?
Walter, I would like to congratulate.
Okay, nothing heard. Again, we'll vote in the negative. If you have an objection. I'm sorry, Tom. Say again. You were broken up.
I'd like to say on 512 that I'd like to congratulate the administration and the faculty for attempting to deal with all these options and all the work that they've done to go into these things and to clarify it as best we can at this point to our families. I think they've done a yeoman job in a difficult situation. I do thank them for their efforts.
Walter, I'd also like to thank the administration or team, whoever negotiated the Giddings contract. There's a reduction in cost in that contract renewal.
Very good, Terry. Very good, Tom. Chair certainly agrees that the administration has been doing a yeoman's work on trying to get a lot of this stuff done under very, very difficult circumstances. Any further comments, questions, or discussion? Okay, again, we'll vote in the negative. If you object to any of these, please say no at this point. Silence is golden. The chair assumes that these all pass unanimously. Okay, policy and personnel. Uta, I think it's your turn.
Okay, we met this evening. During our meeting, we discussed some of the items that are on the agenda, including the administrative assistant position change. We also discussed the phased reopening guidance that was provided by PDE and the administration's plan to develop the health and safety plan that's required. The administration is going to go with a team approach. Mr. Vukovic will be the coordinator of this team, and we are aware that we can't have any face-to-face instruction or interaction until the plan is approved, and that can't happen, and no face-to-face interaction prior to July 1st. The hope is that we will be able to have some further conversation this month about this plan, but we also recognize that the plan will need to be flexible and living document as the guidance that we are provided could change, or the situation could change. So that was our committee meeting report. Are there any motions that anybody wants to pull out before I make them?
Yeah, it's Tamara. I need to pull out the IEP speech and language co-op agreement.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. I move that we take item 6.2, 6.3, 6.4, 6.6, 6.7, 6.8, 6.9, 6.10, 6.11 for approval.
Second.
Any discussion?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded for 6.2 through 6.11, excluding 6.5. Questions, comments, or discussion among the board members?
On 6.2, I'd like to congratulate the new teachers that are qualified for tenure.
Mike, is there anything you would like?
Yes, sir. Mr. Harley, I'll defer my time to Mr. Harley. I think he was going to congratulate the teachers who have gained tenure, sir. Mr. Harley?
Walter and I are having a communication problem tonight. So I'd like to congratulate the teachers that are listed here for becoming tenured teachers in the Indiana Area School District. We look forward to a long and faithful service from them.
I certainly second that, Tom. And again, I just wanted to make sure Mike didn't have anything that he wanted to comment specifically on any of these motions before we take a vote. Okay, at this point in time, we'll vote through the chat room. If you're in favor, vote yes. If not, vote no.
No, I turned my camera off.
Uta, your mic is
Okay.
on.
Okay, it appears that we have a majority of the motions carry.
Okay, I think we're ready for item 6.5
So
IUP.
the motions carry. Yep, go ahead, Uta.
Okay, item 6.5 is IUP Speech and Language Cooperative Agreement. I move that the board approves the cooperative agreement between Indiana University of Pennsylvania and the Indiana Area School District for speech language pathology services as submitted.
Second.
Any discussion?
Ms. Howard, if I
Okay,
could.
we have a motion and a second on IUP speak.
Mr. President, if I could, I just want to.
Yes, go ahead, Mike.
I just want to say how beneficial this IUP partnership is, especially in the time of the breakdown with the school closure, how much more they're going to be needed. It's a beneficial partnership. When I first got this position, we wanted to expand our partnerships, and this is reflective of that and has my support as well as Mr. Zahorchak and Mr. Heinrich's support.
Okay, I certainly agree with that, Mike. Any further questions, comments, or discussion amongst the board members?
Walter, I need to abstain on this one.
Okay, nothing heard.
I also need to abstain on this one.
Okay, okay, so let's go ahead and vote in the chat room again, and you two can indicate abstaining from this particular motion? Okay, it appears we have enough votes to pass it at this point in time. We'll go on to item 7. I believe that's Julia, Audit and Finance.
Wait, I think we have buildings and grounds there.
Yeah,
7 is
it's
buildings and grounds.
Can I take that, Walter?
Go ahead, Terry. His mic's off again.
Okay. There's no committee meeting report. We haven't had a meeting since our last.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
7.2, I'd like to make a motion for a change order that the board approves the following change order for the East Pike Entranceway project as presented. CNC, change order 1, extension of substantial completion date to August 6, 2020. Mark Services, change order, extension of substantial completion date from 8/6 to 9/31. And actually the first one was from 8/6 to 9/31. These are both at no cost. Bear Services, change order, extension of substantial completion from 8/6 to 9/31 at no cost. And M&B Electric, extension of substantial completion from 8/6 to 9/31 at no cost. And then CNC, change order number 2, construction of additional footer space near the elevator shaft at an additional cost of $4,017. And Mark Services, change order 2, deducting hurricane curbing. It's a deduct of $1,006.50.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded on 7.2. Further discussion, questions, or comments by the board?
I'm going to ask Jared or Mr. Cox to give an explanation of why we're extending the contract date.
Mr. Kerr, I can take that. The first 4 are because of the delay that some of the contractors are seeing, not only from the COVID pandemic, but also the delay because of the COVID pandemic, but also in the delay that we had to get everybody the contracts rolled out. Originally, their date was pushed back till August 31st, was some of the thought, at least from the general contractor. But the HVAC contractor, his piece of equipment, the main unit, is not set to be delivered till sometime, I believe, the end of August or early September. So he was asking for the September 31st, just so he got everything put in place. And then we, at the last Buildings and Grounds Committee, we talked about lining them all up, which makes sense, especially with the HVAC contractor, who once he gets that piece of equipment in place, probably everybody would play a role in that as well. As far as the other contractors would all kind of have to play a part in finalizing the hookup of the HVAC unit. So that's why we have lined them all up. And I believe that date is wrong. It should be September 30th, not the 31st. And then the other 2 change orders are just, as we said, for some additional footer space to put the new office wall on at East Pike, and then some hurricane curbing that we don't feel is needed on the new addition as well. And that's a deduct.
I would like to point out that I've seen these change orders come in with additional fees because of longer supervision, more work to shut down a job and then bring it back up. So I'm pleased that these 4 contractors have chosen just to increase the time. And I thank them for doing that.
And we did stress to all the contractors at our meeting last week that even delaying, this substantial completion, our goal is to at least be able to use the front doors, the new front doors at the start of school, so that we are not having kids come in one way and then changing that a couple of weeks later. And they all agreed that that should not be an issue, that we should at least be able to use the front set of doors and have the kids come in on the first day of school as they will the whole entire year. So we were happy about that.
Okay, any further comments, question, or discussion on the boards on 7.2? Nothing heard. Again, we'll vote in the negative. If you object to these change orders, please indicate no at this point. Nothing was heard, so the chair assumes that unanimous approval of 7.2. All right, Terry, 7.3.
Okay, thank you. First, I'll ask Randy if he could increase the font size, but 7.3, that Mr. Greg Trout, Supervisor of Building and Grounds, be authorized to grant preliminary approval on change orders for the East Pike Entranceway project and the high school chairlift project that are under $10,000 in cost. All change orders will be brought to the full board for approval.
I second this motion.
I have a question. Are we talking $10,000
Okay,
cumulatively, or are we talking $10,000 each, under $10,000 each?
The way I understand it, it's each. And from what I understand also, this has been done in the past to give Mr. Trout this authority.
We're talking about an individual change order being under 10,000.
Okay, so we could have 10 change orders that are $9,000 each, and we'd be at $90,000.
Correct.
Okay.
okay, Terry, you are correct. I'm sure Tom will verify this, but we've been on the board long enough to know that we have granted the administration the ability to make some of these change orders of a minimal amount prior to the full approval of the board. Particularly if we've only got one meeting in July, we certainly don't want to hold up a project for a relatively small change order.
And I agree, Walter, and I also agree that we all have a lot of trust in Mr. Trout to make good decisions, sound decisions, and it could actually end up saving money if he's able to keep the project moving forward, where it could delay the project.
Agreed, Terry. Uta, your mic is hot. Is there anything you wanted to ask at this point?
No, I'd just be more comfortable if there was a not to exceed amount at the end of that. But I understand the purpose of it.
Well, you're welcome to propose an amendment if you so choose, Uta.
I would also be more comfortable with that.
Yeah. My question is, would Mr. Trout go back to the chair of the building to Mr. Kerr and tell him before he does something? I mean, I hope the lines of communications are always open.
Yes, I definitely would be in communication with the board for that. Mr. Kerr and I have talked before with previous projects, and anytime something has come up, they were obviously the first to know.
Greg, 10,000, would you consider making that per event? Like right now we have 4,000 for CNC. These change orders aren't going to be much above that. 10,000 would be a huge change at this point. We're coming up out of the ground. I would think you could probably operate, you know, when I say event, like if the window needs $1,000 and the furnace needs $1,000, that would be two separate events.
Well, that's the way it is now, Tom, and I'm okay with a friendly amendment to satisfy Uta's and Tammy's concerns. If, you know, we could throw up not to exceed a total of either like 50,000, 75,000, 100,000 or something on the end of this amendment.
Terry, yeah, I just don't know what a reasonable amount is. So that's where I'm going to need some help in trying to figure out what.
Jared, in the budget number, there was a contingency number. Do you remember what that was?
I was going to throw out it's
Mr. Hurley, I do not.
It's basically $1.5 million project. A lot of times they use a 10% contingency, so that'd be $150,000, which I think is a little bit high to put on the end of this motion. But
Terry, do you think if we said, I don't know, 70,000, is that reasonable?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Greg, is that, can you live with that?
Yes, definitely. At least that'll get us through. Hopefully, we don't have to have any additional change orders.
Yeah.
But
right.
We can always come back and look like they were in August, and something definitely unforeseen would show up. But my hope, of course, is that the change orders we have seen, the one positive for us for money and the one negative, hopefully we're down to maybe just one or two very small ones at most. But my preference, of course, would be a zero.
Mm-hmm.
So can somebody clarify exactly what this is now? So if there's a change order that's under $10,000, so for instance, the one for the elevator shaft, that's just automatically approved by Greg until we get enough of them that we're up to this number that we're going to discuss now? Is that?
No, it would get preliminarily approved by Mr. Trout. It still has to come to the full board for approval, but his max for preliminarily approving anything, you know, the change order has to be under $10,000, but the cumulative amount can't be more than 70,000.
Uta, is that on all change order or is that on one change order?
Well, the way this says, it says grant preliminary approval on change orders that are under $10,000 in cost.
Okay, so
with a not to exceed cumulative total. So if he gets 9 change orders at $8,000 a piece, that 9th one can't happen because he'll have met his cumulative total that we're putting in here. Okay. Not to exceed amount.
Yeah, he can. This only really has to last for month to month until he can bring it to the board. So I'd be okay with limiting that total amount to 50,000. It'd give him the flexibility, but he has to bring it back to the board. And I'd also put in there that he has to, in consultation with the chairman of the Buildings and Grounds Committee. Can we do that?
So
okay, Tom, are you proposing? I'm sorry, go ahead, Cinda.
If he has $49,000 of change orders that he's preliminarily approved, and he has to wait a month or even 2 weeks for us to have a board meeting, and they go ahead and do those change orders because he did the approval, and we don't approve, then what happens?
No,
So
we're
I'm-
committing to approving them. We're committing to approving them. If Greg says they're valid change orders, we're today making a commitment that we'll follow up Greg.
Okay, so it's approving Greg and, okay, that's fine. That works.
Okay.
I would, let me see.
Can I read the motion as I have it?
Yeah, let's
Please.
That Mr. Greg Trout, Supervisor of Buildings and Grounds, be authorized to grant preliminary approval on change orders for the East Pike and high school projects that are under 10,000 per change order, with the total and change orders for preliminary approval not to exceed $50,000, and to consult with the Buildings and Ground Chairman for all approvals.
I'm good with that.
Yes, but then you say all change orders will be brought to the full board for approval. That would be
Yes.
less than that, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, Tammy, are you okay with that? You were one that objected to no limit. Are you okay with the current motion?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, is there any further questions, comments, or discussion on the motion as Jared just read?
I have a question. Should it say committee or chairman for all change orders?
I'm good with the committee.
I'm good with the chairman. It's going to be easier for Greg to, I'm sure Terry will incorporate the rest of us, but it's more difficult to get a committee together instantaneous. I think all he has to do is talk to Terry, and Terry can talk to the rest of us.
I think that's right. Go ahead, Barb.
I'd rather say committee because sometimes it's really hard to decipher emails that you don't know what's going on in the beginning because you didn't get the first email.
The problem with the committee is getting all the information to the committee. What is it? 3 of us and having us all react to it in a timely manner. I think I can trust Terry to get information to you and me as best he can. And all Greg has to do is touch one person. A change order is going to be happening because the roof blew off or the wind blew over or something happened. And the reason we're doing this is to speed things up, not to slow them down. I'm very comfortable with having the line of communication go through Terry.
I agree, Tom. And I'm sure Terry will do a good job communicating with you, Barb, and any other members of the Buildings and Grounds Committee. We're trying to make this more streamlined, but with some controls and checks and balances. Is there any other questions, comments, or further discussion on this motion? Okay, nothing heard. I believe we'll take a roll call on this. Jared, if you would, please.
Tammy Blank,
Yes.
Cinda Brode,
Yes.
Julia Markey Kukrow,
Yes.
Tom Harley,
Yes.
Mr. Kerr,
Yes.
Mrs. Leeper,
Yes.
Mrs. Lowry,
Yes.
Mr. Schroth,
Yes.
Barb Barker.
Okay, that motion carries.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Water, hold on. Finish up, Jared.
Barb has to vote.
Barb Barker,
I vote no only because I think it should go to the email should go to the committee and not just the chairperson.
And I'll say, Barb, that I'm going to ask Greg to, any emails he sends me, he sends to the committee.
Okay, well, the motion still carries. Sorry, Barb, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I thought I was the last guy on the chain. But it looks like the motion does carry. Terry, you want to take 7.4 at this point?
Sure. I have a question first. Before I read the first motion, and this is a question to you, Mr. Chairman, or Mr. Repack. Is there any way to have discussion about the two roof replacement estimates before I read the first motion that puts a contractor and a cost in there to repair or to replace the roof? I guess that's the second one.
So, for Mr. Kerr, typically the way Robert's rules work is you're going to have the motion to be able to talk about it. However, as the chairman, you can at least describe and ask for some input maybe from the administration, which I think would help maybe prompt a lot of the discussion that could come of it about which direction to go. But you could always make a motion a second, and then we could go back and just modify that if need be. So I'd almost ask that if the administration is able to weigh in and you're able to weigh in on the difference between these two motions to try to get the board a little bit of information before we even begin.
Okay. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep.
I'm going to go back a couple years ago. We had had a couple maintenance project workshops on Saturdays where we brainstormed and prioritized projects. So, and I'm repeating myself, but just in case someone's on here that's not aware of that. So the East Pike roof bubbled to the top as a priority 2 years ago. It was actually to be replaced in the fall of that year, 2 years ago in 2018. But just like a lot of maintenance projects, they get pushed off. The East Pike roof has also past its life expectancy. The roof is currently leaking, and the roof structure on that building is tongue and groove decking, which you see as your ceiling underneath, and then it's also laminated beams. And I'm as frugal as probably anybody on this call. I don't like spending money unless we have to, but there are projects that you should not put off, and especially a flat roof that's leaking going into winter, and especially when it's past its life expectancy. So I think it's prudent and wise to go with the second motion to replace the roof, but I'm going to ask Greg and Jared. I'd asked them, I think yesterday or this morning, I don't remember which, to put together a decision matrix, which Mr. O'Neill could bring up, that goes through the different estimates. And that's where I'm going to ask Greg, with your expertise and your knowledge and history of replacing roofs and within the district on the buildings, could just briefly summarize the two replacement estimates. I'd asked, there's different warranty periods for each of the roof replacement estimates. There are also different types of material. So Greg or Cheney and Jared had listed the pros and cons to each of the ones. And then I also asked them, because there's a different warranty period for each of them, to put together a column that has the cost per year, factoring in the term of the warranty. So Jared or Greg, do you mind explaining your spreadsheet, and then that may spark some more discussion.
I'll let you cover that, Greg.
And Randy, if you could increase the size of that a little bit, it may help.
Yes, the East Pike roof. Okay.
I can't hear.
Yeah, I know with my Chromebook, I'm not able actually to read it, but I should know most of the information. If someone's prompted on a line, I'll be able to go from that, just from memory or what notes I do have here.
And I apologize for the size. It's a very big spreadsheet.
looked at the roof here back in the winter here. We were experiencing some leaks. Yes. So we looked at the roof when we were having some leaks. Dunkel Roofing came and evaluated what we currently had for leaks. Now it was also winter. Now what that's being a ballasted roof. A ballast is basically it's covered with stones. So to evaluate the entire roof, you can't really do so because you'd have to move back all the stone on the whole roof to walk through area by area to make that determination where we are with everything. But we had a current leak in an area, and they came up with a proposal to give us the cost to cover just that area that was currently leaking. When we were going through the roof with C.E. Davis and also with Dunkel Roofing, we were walking the administration side, and we came across another area that we know definitely is going to need attention this summer unless we were replacing. Now, we did not notice anything else at that particular time. You know, the reason we came across the second area, the stone happened to be away, and there happened to be about a 1.5 foot gap that was showing through where the membrane had torn. So that was sort of temporarily band-aided just to get us through to where we are to make that decision. The rest of the roof, of course, we don't have an idea where we are as far as if we make these repairs 3 months down the road, they might say, hey, there's another $30,000 worth of repairs needed because we've noticed tears after we went up to determine that you had a leak over room B4, let's say. So there really isn't a way to guarantee that if we were to do these repairs that we're not going to have some even 2 days after we make the repairs. But we could get fortunate and it could go a whole year and not have another leak. That's something, of course, without a crystal ball, obviously we don't know. Going with the two different types of roofs, the Duralast roof, I believe, is the first one that's listed that you have. Now, that is a 20-year roof warranty. It has a NDL, which is a no dollar limit, which, by the way, both of them have that same style of warranty. They're different time frames as far as the warranty themselves. The installation values on those are, I think it's R42 is approximately what they're calling for on the Duralast roof. There are pros and cons. I think I can read that, Randy. Thank you very much. It says the pro, it's a custom fabricated sheet with fewer seams. A pro is also the penetrations are from the factory, which means what they do is they take the entire roof, they measure every place that we have a roof curb, an exhaust vent, a sewage stack vent. They measure, and what they do is they take our entire roof, they manufacture the PVC, lay out the entire roof on their floor area, mark the penetrations, cut them, and then they ship them the product for the contractor at that point to go ahead and put it in. That's just particular fashion that they like to send their product out to their contractors. It is a pro is it's a white in color, which helps with the heat load in the summer. We don't have air conditioning in the building. Also, we don't have school too. Another pro is ponded water does not affect the roof surface. They are not calling for there are items they put on the roof called crickets, and that helps divert water towards your roof drains. This particular style of roof does not need the crickets, and so therefore, if you have any ponding water that's on the roof, they are fine with that. It has no bearing on their warranty or how the product reacts through the lifetime that it's under warranty. One of the cons, the PVC is a difficult roof to walk on. If like in the morning dew, or if it's a little bit icy outside, they seem to, they're extremely slippery. Another con is when they go to put the PVC roof down, they screw the insulation down with screws. And when they do that, well, we only have 1.5 inches thick ceiling and roof deck. It is the same piece of wood that you would see on top as you do underneath. The underneath side is the finish area that's in the classrooms and the multi-purpose room. When you look up, you see that wide board. That is the roof deck, which is only 1.5 inches thick. There are chances when they're putting the screws to hold the insulation that would penetrate. If it does, what they would do, they trim it off, and they would stain or try to match if there's any splintering from the wood below. Another con it does not include all new fascia. It does an extension, so you would have like a 3 to 4 inch existing fascia that stays up all the way around the perimeter of the school, and they add theirs an added fascia on top of that, so that helps, because they have to put a wooden nailer up so that your added roof insulation is now at a higher level than what the rubber roof it is itself. Those are the pros and cons for the Duralast. The other is a proposal from Dunkel Roofing. Oh wait, I guess do we have any questions on the Duralast roof at all at this point?
Yes, I do, Greg.
Terry, I think we should point out
other roof.
I'm sorry, Greg. I think you should point out.
I didn't hear that, Walter.
Go ahead, Cinda.
Was that the start date?
Greg?
No, okay. My only comment was we have that same Duralast on a couple of our other buildings that we did during the ESCO. And then Cinda, I know, wanted to make a comment.
I wanted to ask about the con that it does not include all fascia surface. So that was not included in the estimate or the bid price?
When I say it's not, when you look at the fascia right now, let's say it's 9 inches tall. They're not going to remove the old one. They're adding theirs to the front of that, so that you will see, let's say they're adding 12 inches on top of that. And they're going to leave a 3 inch or 3 to 4 inch area of the old fascia looking out, and theirs gets secured on top of it. So you would have 3 to 4 inch area of old fascia, and then you would have the 9 to 12 or whatever inches of fascia on top of that. So it's not an entire new fascia all the way around the building. It's a mixture of old and new.
It's not an add or a delete, and it's just a method of installation.
Well, that's confusing. He said if we have 9 inches of fascia now and the new fascia is 12, that we'd still have 3 inches of old. If we've got 9 and we cover it with 12, why are we still seeing old?
Cinda, I think Greg, what they'll do is they'll leave the old fascia in place and put an extension on it. They won't replace the entire fascia. They'll do a little seam that will join the two things together.
And what is the fascia made of?
It's aluminum. It'll match the brown color that's there, I believe.
Okay.
Okay. I'd also like to point out, Greg, that your pro on the Duralast is 600,000 and the con on Dunkel is 800,000. There's a huge difference in the price. So that needs to be a pro.
Duralast is only.
Can I ask a question? How has the Duralast held up at the other buildings that we have it on?
So far, we've done very well with any roof.
Go ahead,
put
Cameron.
on with the size of our building. You will have issues here and there. They've been very reactive whenever we call. They're very quick to come out, take care of any issues. And sometimes some of the issues could have been something as simple as maybe we were walking up there and there was a screw and we stepped on it and put a hole in it. Don't know if we've actually had any of that, but that is could be a common occurrence with obviously any roof that you have.
Have you? Sorry.
Okay, so I'll go. So just your example with the screws, is that a significant benefit of the rubber roof? Or do you not think that outweighs the, the cost, the extra cost?
Now, I will cover that one real shortly, and we can I'll mention that when we get to that area. It's less likely with a ballasted roof if you have something that was laying up there, because it has to go down through the stones and then penetrate. The rubber roof actually has a covering on top, but we will get to that when we explore the pros and cons and how that roof's constructed.
Okay, and then just one more question on this. So does putting new fascia over old fascia lead to the possibility of any additional problems happening?
The only thing that you would have would be color match or paint retention, which we haven't seen a problem with paint retention the entire time. We'll probably have minimal fading. You're going to have some fading over 25 years or whatever with any product. So we actually had that's how they did our other roofs at the other elementaries too. They added the fascia over top of their new fascia over top of the old, so that they can get the extra height without having to remove all the old fascia.
I was just wondering, the other Dura roofs that we have, are any of them flat roofs?
Yes, they're all flat.
They're all flat.
Okay.
Then Greg, could you mention the schedule for the Duralast? Then when you get to the other one, you can mention that.
Yes, I don't see the date on there, Randy, but I believe that from memory, they could not be. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Randy. A little bit further. Okay, the start date would be mid-July. The end would be September 30th. That's a day that he was throwing out as far as with what he currently has in the works, plus for him to get his materials. Those are the dates that he has proposed.
Randy or Greg, Julia had a question
now,
about Horace
second
Mann
roof.
roof too.
Yeah, Randy, thanks. This is Julia. I'm just curious.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Does Horace Mann have is any part of that roof a flat roof? And when was the last time doesn't it still have some leaking problems as well?
The flat part on Horace Mann.
Yes, it does have flat roof. That was taken care of during the ESCO project. What is left is the the regular style asphalt shingle that's on it, and it's very steep roof. I've been walking through whenever we have rains, whenever we didn't have people in the buildings, and I have not detected any new leaks. And every day that I walk through, I did go through every single upstairs room to look for anything new. Did not find anything. And I did talk to the head custodian. He's not aware of any current leaks. He said we've had some issues during the winter with some ice jam ups. He said that's when we've had some leaks over there.
So Greg, what is the current roof material?
Current roof is it is a rubber roof currently.
And remind me, how old is it?
It's a rubber roof. Actually, it's very similar. I believe, I don't have my information in front of me, but I believe it may have been when we did the East Pike renovation, in which probably was, the roof would have been put on roughly 98, if I'm correct on the date.
Okay, thank you.
I think Barb had a question again on that Horseman roof.
And the roof that we're,
She on the chat.
yeah, I do not have a date exactly. Yeah, I don't have that information. It's at my desk to tell me exact date of that. I do not have that with me, but it's also an aged roof.
So we have two
The
aged
second
roofs.
roof is a rubber membrane. Correct. And during our Saturday workshops, we had discussed both of these roofs at that particular time. And I believe that this roof may have been, the East Pike roof may have been the older of the roofs.
Yeah, I just thought on the deferred maintenance list, these projects weren't highlighted as priorities right now, but maybe I'm mistaken and misunderstood that.
So Greg, I have
They
another
rose
question.
to the top of everything when we were doing our Saturday
Okay,
workshops.
Greg, you want to try to keep this
Yeah,
moving?
but I mean on the regular deferred maintenance list, that they were, I remember talking about them in those workshops several years ago, but when we went over deferred maintenance at the Audit and Finance Committee last fall, I don't recall any problems about the roof. So if they repair it, they would be repairing just that one place on the East Pike roof. Is that correct? Is this place you're talking about?
We actually have two places. There's one on the administration side, and there's one over on the B-wing side. It would be the back side that faces where big play field area is.
The problem though with this type of roof, the type and that it's flat, that if you are in cold weather or wet weather, snow in the wintertime, and it starts leaking, you cannot repair it.
Well, I'm aware. I have 3 of them on my house, but you know, we've gotten a lot longer than their warranty out of them with patching. I agree it's not easy, but it can be done. Not in the winter, no. You have to do something.
Harry, I'd like to point out that a ballasted roof is full of stones, and finding a leak on a ballasted roof is 90% of the problem, and not causing a leak by moving the stones back. They're very difficult to patch, and especially with adverse weather.
The roof was installed in 1999.
Okay, the second roof is a rubber membrane. It's a division of Carlisle. It also would be a minimum of R42. I mentioned earlier about the crickets. Their proposal, they do have a deduct, but their proposal is for the crickets, and the crickets are build-up areas that help divert water towards our roof drains. That's something that they normally never recommend not to have, but they did leave it as a deduct if we so wished. But that's something that I definitely would not advise on. It wasn't that great of a deduct. I believe it was 33,000. The pros and cons, their sheets come in 20 by 100 with factory seams with an applied tape on them. They have an edge finish included in the warranty with a 30-year spec. And this is an upgrade from a standard, what they would normally do. If they were looking just at a 20-year warranty, they would have used a different edge, which would have been a substantially less reduced cost. But they were wanting to give us a 25-year warranty because they know that we normally get more than that anyway. But they wanted to make sure that they had a stronger edge, since edges are typical faults of all the flat roofs because of the expansion and contraction. Another pro is penetration is all the same cured products. Actually, that's also a pro for the Duralast because they use all their same product also. The insulation and rubber are secured with the stone ballast, so you don't have any chance of penetrating with putting the screws down. So it's I shouldn't say easier, but it's a less chance. The other thing I forgot to mention was not only when they secure the installation down with the Duralast, we do have electric that runs through or above the wood decking. Otherwise, you would see electrical conduit and the finished area underneath, with that only being 1.5 inch thick roof. So the conduit does run up there. With the stone ballast, you don't risk running a screw down as you're securing the insulation down through into the either the wood space or the conduit. The another pro, it's much safer to walk on in any condition. You don't have to worry about the ice or water. And the pro with the added crickets, you don't have any water ponding, which is critical for more of a rubber roof. Another pro, they have in their proposal, they said they were putting all new fascia. They don't want to have any chance of a fade or a blend. They just want to put all new. They also put down a Versaco HP protective mat, which is installed over top of the rubber and in between the stone ballast. That's to help protect it this from any stone or any other abrasions. The start time for them could be July 1st with an end date of August 31st.
If you had your choice, Greg, but
okay, Terry, does that pretty well cover what you?
yeah, I'll say it again. I want to first thank Jared and Greg and Cheney, I'm guessing, for putting this decision matrix together. It really helps with this discussion. And then, Greg, if you had your choice between the two, which one are you recommending?
I always try never to get in the middle of this one, but the extra warranty, the 25-year warranty, and the ease of my staff. I mean, walking on the stones is difficult, but it's a lot less chance of fall. I know what it's like to work on the white roof. They both are great roofs, but I probably like the idea of the rubber roof only because it has the crickets, it has the stone. It is the R value that they are showing does not include the extra mat that they put on, nor does it include any thermal that the stone may have. The stone will help also reflect some of the summer heat because they're lighter stones. It's better. If it was just a straight black rubber roof, I probably wouldn't go with the straight flat black rubber roof partially because of the heat, and also the black, if it's ice up on top, you can't see it because it's like black ice, just like you have a road. It's just a little bit easier.
Thanks, Greg. And while Randy has.
Okay, Terry, was there anything more?
Yeah, while Randy has the spreadsheet up there, if you look at a cost per warranty year, the D column, that considers the 20-year versus the 25-year warranty. So for less than $1,000 a year, you get an extra 5 years, and then the benefits that Greg just spoke about. That's all, Walter. Thank you.
Okay. Was there any further information that you wanted before we actually start the process of the motions, Terry?
I do not unless anybody else has any questions at this point.
Okay,
Well, so, yeah, I
unless
have a
anybody
question.
objects, Randy, can you take?
Hold on, Walter, hold on.
Walter, I have a question.
Go,
The matrix we just
go
saw.
ahead, Uta.
The matrix we just saw, was that for replacement? The dollar estimates, the 594,000 and the 791,000? And if that's true, where is the cost for the repair?
If Randy scrolls down, there's the repair.
Got it. Okay. And there's no other conversation on repair. It just is what it is. We're repairing what we have with what we have.
Well, I think he does have pros and cons over there.
That is correct, and you don't have any.
Okay.
But the pro is you save money in the short term. The con is there is no guarantee that future repairs are not needed, especially in the winter time.
Okay.
And also, Uta, I think going back to the cost for the replacement, the 594,000, if I remember right, isn't a total cost because there were no figures added for raising the 3 rooftop units that are up there. They were not included in the estimate. So that 594,000 could be, well, it will be more because those units have to be moved.
And I believe that the R42 did not require those machines to be raised, that there is no additional cost to raise the machine. The R48 required those machines to be raised. I think that's why they went to the R42.
That's correct.
Okay, thanks.
Mike, I have a question. Greg, do you regularly get up on those roofs every summer and look at them? I know it's hard on a rubber roof to see the leaks, but do you regularly tar them and put the patching that they recommend on them? Have you done that every year with East Pike?
This style roof, no, you do not put rubber. You don't put anything on a tar or anything. It does take a special patch, and whenever we have a leak, is when we call and we have them come up, and then they scoot.
Yeah, but do you look at it? Do you go up and inspect the roof regularly? At least once a year.
We're up on the roof multiple times a year, and as our staff is up there looking at, like right now, they're up working to make sure all the power roof exhaust fans are working. Anytime we're working on it, we walk the perimeter. We walk the entire roof looking for issues, but
the same as Horseman. So you do that with all these roofs.
Well, we do not do it with Horseman, the asphalt shingle roof. It's too steep. That's one I personally won't go down unless I had ropes.
Yeah. Okay.
But Julia, looking at the East Pike roof, we'd be looking at a gravel parking lot. The stone doesn't let you see the membrane, and
yeah, I understand. Yeah, I get what it looks like now. Yeah, I've seen it.
It's not gonna. It doesn't do you much good except to go to a seam or something like that.
Well, yeah, for deferred maintenance, it does a lot of good. I'm not, but we got big numbers here in front of us with a big deficit, so I'm just kind of concerned.
What I'm saying is that it looks like a 5-acre parking lot. You just see stone is the problem. On the white roof, you can see the actual membrane. You can see a cut. You can see a tear.
I got it. Thanks.
So
Now, if you're,
this is,
Tamara, you were going to say something. Go ahead.
so are we gonna start debating what to do? Is this the time or like just
We don't
giving
have
our 2 cents?
We don't have motions yet.
So we're gonna wait for the motions, or are we gonna discuss what motion we should set forth?
Well, I think you take them one at a time and ask for debate, and you either vote them up or down. But maybe Ron has a better idea.
No, I would concur with what Madam Vice President said. I would take one of the motions and then be able to talk, discuss, and vote them up or down one way or the other.
Okay, the silence sort of indicates that maybe it's my turn to step in.
I thought it first.
I agree with Ron. I agree with Ron and Julia that at this point in time, if there isn't any further information that we need to be presented from the administration, Randy, maybe we could go back to the agenda. And Terry, if you wanted to, as chair customary, you make the motion. Go ahead and start with, whichever one you prefer, and we'll start the debate and the discussion.
Okay, thank you. And thanks for the administrative team again for presenting that and putting that decision matrix together. So I'm going to go with the second motion. I'm going to say that the board approves Dunkel Roofing as the contractor to replace the roof on East Pike Elementary at an estimated cost of $791,000.
Okay, just to be clear, Terry's made the motion, and now we need a second from somebody to continue the process. Do I hear a second on the motion as Terry presented it?
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved in second to have Dunkel do it at a approximate cost of $794,000. Now we can have some further discussion and more debate on this particular motion.
I first want to say I chose Dunkel for the 791 with considering Greg's input. I'm not going to. It makes sense. Dunkel's a fairly local contractor. Also, they have quite a history of quality work. I also want to say that I understand the environment that we're in. On that spreadsheet also was where the funding is coming from. It's not going to hurt our general operating budget at all, as this money would, as per our business manager, would be coming out of the bond funds, so it doesn't impact our deficit at all. I also want to say that the community members that I've spoken to about this have said that it's a no-brainer, that you need to replace the roof. You don't want to take this type of a flat roof material in the wintertime and have it starting to leak, especially because of the type of roof structure it is. I also want to say that East Pike Elementary School is in excellent condition and we want to keep it that way. Again, this is a need, not a want. Open it up for discussion.
Terry, this is Julia. Thank you. I have no idea how serious the condition is at East Pike or at Horace Mann. But I take you and Greg at your word that you think it's a serious situation. Two comments. We're still at about, you make the point that you would take that out of the bond proceeds for Ben Franklin, but I would, I'm not so sure we can do that in light of the fact that that was money to be used for another purpose. So I think we might need the opinion of our bond agent as to whether or not that would be the proper use of those funds. But in a general way, in terms of just a general cash reserve that we have in our 2 reserve funds and in the general fund, I just feel as though it is still looking at about a $2.5 million deficit. I think if we could just get through for another year with this roof and repair it, that I would prefer that right now, and then defer that for another year. Thank you.
Tom, you've got an open mic. Was there something you wanted to say?
I'm trying to let everybody else have their say. I'd like to make a amendment to the motion that we approve the C.E. Davis estimate of $594 for the Duralast roof for the following reasons. It's a white roof. It'll make the fall much more comfortable in the building. It's a $200,000 less number. I believe that we're always better off fixing our roofs and not passing them on to a future board. We've certainly had no serious trouble with the roofs, the Duralast roof we have and that we've bought in place. I've had lots of experience with them, with this roof for a long time. I have very little faith in the longevity of a rubber roof. When they fail just a mess. So I'd like to offer an amendment to the motion that we accept the Davis roof. If anyone would care to second that. Hearing none, I yield the floor.
Julia, you comment, you think it's a new motion. Actually, I don't. I mean, I think technically we actually can amend this if we want at this point in time to change the contractor as well as the amount. Tom's point is that if somebody's going to have to second it in order to have that discussion.
And I cannot second it, right?
Why not?
I'm asking.
You can, Mr. Kerr. There's nothing to prevent you.
I'll second the amendment, friendly amendment.
Technically, Terry, it's not a friendly amendment at this point, but it's friendly in the spirit of trying to get to the bottom of this. But I believe I concur with Ron that you can second this motion. I don't see any reason why you can't. So it's been moved and seconded to amend. Do we have any other discussion, comments on the amendment to the motion?
Now, the amendment to the motion is we do the repair and then we put it off for 1 year?
So the amendment is we do the replacement with the different roof at the lower cost. Other contractor.
Yeah, Tammy, to be clear, what we're doing now, and we'll have a vote on this. We're simply modifying the original motion. We're not making a decision as to whether or not we're going to replace the roof. We're making a decision about which contractor, which type of roofing, and which total dollar expense that we're going to consider if the roof is replaced. Does that help clear that up for you?
No,
Yes.
that made it not clear, Walter.
We're not. Essentially, what Tammy's saying is, are we dropping down to the second part of 7.4?
No.
Not. We had Terry, for some reason, switched these motions around from what they're stated in the agenda. So we started with that the board approves the contractor to replace the roof. That's the second part of 7.4. Then we amended it to say that, well, we're going to use the other company at the different price. So we're still on that second set. We've not moved up to the repair.
Correct. Look, Madam Vice President's correct.
So either way, though, the motion, let's say it's amended and we say we use C.E. Davis at his $600,000 cost to replace the roof. If we vote yes for that, then that means we're replacing the roof. So what Walter was saying that, you know, we're just looking at which contractor, I don't think that works.
Well, I think the amendment takes his first motion off the table.
No, Cinda, let me clarify, and I'll ask Ron to weigh in on this. No, it doesn't mean that we're going to replace the roof. It means we're choosing a different contractor to consider for that replacement. Ron, can you maybe explain a little better? Because I seem to be balling this thing up.
No, it is very difficult, just because when you do an amendment in the middle of it, you actually have to vote on the amendment. And then once we vote on the amendment, if all the board members would agree, then you actually have to vote on that approved amendment, which becomes the new motion that you would be entering.
That's what I say. It's a whole new motion. It's not even an amendment. But I'll let that go. I'll waive that.
And then after that motion to amend passes, then you vote whether or not to replace the roof.
Correct.
Under the amended motion.
Correct.
And at that point, it's replace the roof, no more consideration of repair.
If the board would vote, if the board would vote on the second motion approving them, then that would be correct.
Okay, so what Walter said had me confused, because I thought he was saying that, no, we're just choosing between the two contractors. We're not deciding if we're going to replace the roof yet.
Well, the first motion would be
vote on that.
Yeah, the first motion would be the amendment that Mr. Harley made, and the second would be, if the board does vote on that amendment, the second vote would be on the actual replacement of the roof.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Sure, absolutely.
So the amendment would be to have C.E. Davis as the contractor at $594,009 with a 20-year warranty, and it's a Duralast PVC product. Still has the R42.
That's correct, Terry. Uta, you were going to say something. Your mic's hot.
No, I get it now. Thank you.
So I'm just gonna, I say this all the time when we're looking at bids. I really hate to vote on something that is this expensive that has two bids. And I understand that we didn't have to get three because of the system that we went through with the state approved vendors. But I feel that we don't even have two bids that are apples to apples. They're totally different products. Terry, I totally respect your opinion. I believe that we should replace the roof. But I'm gonna have a hard time voting for that tonight because I don't feel like we have enough information on competitive bids.
Okay, at this point, I'm going to weigh in on my thoughts and feelings on this. I do not believe this is the right time to actually replace this roof. I would rather see us repair it this year. However, if the will of the board, which we'll determine here on the second vote, is to replace the roof, then I would much rather see Davis and the Duralast roof system rather than the traditional rubber roof. So, and if there's anybody else that is of such a mind, to be perfectly clear, what that means then is that to vote for the amendment to choose Davis over Dunkel, the Duralast over the rubber, and then after that is made, there'll be a second vote as to whether to replace the roof. And at that point in time, I'm probably going to vote not to replace it, but I will vote to have Davis and the Duralast roof. Are there any other questions, comments, or discussion at this point?
I'd have to say I would be very, very reluctant to vote to replace the roof right now this year because of just the uncertainty of the fall. We don't know what's going to happen. We've already got a major deficit, and I'm the kind of person that would rather hold on to the money for just one more year. So.
One other comment, Walter. I have a concern. This is just an opinion and speculation. Is I think we probably are seeing the best price for replacing this roof in today's environment because of contractors are hungry for putting their people back to work, and then also the material costs because oil prices are so low. I'm afraid next year we're going to see a raise in taxes across the board, and I'm not talking school taxes, I'm talking on a federal level to pay for all these bills that were passed to pass out the money. And I really think that it's cheaper for us to do it now. And I'd like to ask Jared to weigh in on whether he feels we can spend the bond money on this project.
Yes, Mr. Kerr. There is no issue with spending the bond proceeds on this, just as we did borrow the money for Ben Franklin, but we are now spending it on the East Pike entranceway. We are spending it on the senior high, the two senior high projects, the chairlift and the life skills renovation, and we would be spending it on the Eisenhower entranceway if we go to that project as well. So just because we borrowed it for Ben Franklin, we now have the option, if we so choose, to spend it on these other projects now that Ben Franklin's not happening.
I'd like to weigh in from
Okay. I'm sorry.
I don't think that, other than the chairlift, Ben Frank or East Pike and well, never mind. I'm not going to answer that. Thanks.
Walter, I agree with Walter, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with you. This is a difficult decision. Do you spend the money now? Do you repair it and spend the money in 5 years? And my concern is that the high school needed a new roof, and it was repaired for 10 years, and the cost started out in this range, 12,000, and practically doubled every year. And at one point, if you recall, we had 200 5-gallon buckets suspended above the ceiling, catching the rain coming through our roofs. A board 2 years from now or 5 years from now is not going to be in a better position than we are right now. And if we can give them a building that doesn't leak, then then that board can concentrate on teaching kids to read. I would like not to spend I would like to only spend the $12,000 and repair it, but my suspicion is that then we'll spend $24,000 next year and $48,000 the year after that, as we chase these tears and these rips under that stone. The stone is very difficult to find and repair a roof. It makes it extremely difficult. And so you go up and you sweep it back and you patch it and you see if that worked. The Dunkel C.E. Davis has replaced these roofs in this type of construction. They know what they're doing. We have experience with these people. I would like to give the board 2 years from now, almost 6 roofs, 5.5 roofs that are decent and no one has to worry about. All we're doing by doing the repair work is passing the trouble down the line, which for $12,000, I'm happy to do. But it's a false economy, and we're going to turn around, and the cost next year and the cost the year after that, including the cost of the damaged decking, the damaged ceiling tile, those things also come into play. We had a mold controversy in a music room in Ben Franklin that we fought with for 3 or 4 months. Water into a building will induce mold. we can't have that controversy and have all the stuff that we're going back to work in this fall. So I'm going to advocate that we do replace the roof. We do it at the lower number. And if the board decides not to do it, then we have to move on to the repair and at least make the thing solid we put a Band-Aid on it and hope that in a year or two that the next board can solve the problem.
Tom, I understand your point, but I do think that we've got a deferred maintenance list as long as the room I'm sitting in. So there's an awful lot of stuff that we're going to pass on to other boards. So if we can, and I agree with Tamara, I think we should have more than these 2 bids. I don't know why we don't. But it doesn't, tonight we have the business at hand. But I do think that we've put off all kinds of problems, not the least of which is we were just told recently that we were going to need new turf, and we need it now on the football field. So these are all huge numbers that we're looking at that we are going to be forced to pass on to future boards, whoever may be sitting on them. But I think if we can just try to get through this, because of the extraordinary circumstances locally, statewide and nationwide. I mean, we're not even sure what our tax collection rate is going to be going into the fall, which is something the Audit and Finance Committee has addressed. So, all the reserves we have may be put to use in the future for things that we're not even foreseeing right now. Thank you.
Barb, we've not heard from you on this, and I see where Cinda maybe wants to make a comment, but I want to be sure to call on you, Barb, for your input before we wind this portion of the discussion up.
I just want to say Terry does make a valid point about the cost of oil. But I do worry. It's late in the year. There's construction going on at East Pike. We have to get that. To add another thing into the mix with the construction at East Pike, what's going on with the virus, it's too much. But I don't want to kick this down the road for 2, 3, 4 years. It's patch it. Let's get in line for next year to replace it. And as for replacing goes, I'm not. I think I would rather with the pebble roof over the white roof. Just because as much as Greg says they go up on that roof, they're always looking at those fans, and I know that they're always up on that roof looking at those fans, just from having a child in the building. So I worry about safety with the white roof, but I'm for repairing it. I really worry. It's like I said, it's late in the game. We already have an entrance. We hope everything goes okay, but it's a pandemic. It's a different time right now, and we have to really be careful and plan for the worst in case the worst happens.
Okay, Barb, thank you. Cinda, your mic was hot a little bit before I called on Barb. You want to make another comment, please?
Yes, please. Several of them. So first of all, I basically agree with everything that's been said. And I agree with Terry that we need to protect our investments in our buildings. We need to replace things when they need to be replaced. And he said it's a no-brainer. And yeah, it is a no-brainer, but it's only a no-brainer if you look at where the money's coming from. So last year I had roof replaced on my house and 2 other houses that I own. I had enough money. It was my money. I went for it. I went for good quality shingles, everything. This is different. This is taxpayer money, and whether we have it in a reserve account or not, the issue is right now, if you talk to general people on the street and ask them if we should do this, the answer is no, you should not. What is the matter with you? You can explain about the reserve fund all you want, and the idea is the economy's bad, and to Tom's point, a false economy of fixing it instead of replacing it. That's reality right now. This and kicking the can down the road. I hate that expression, but that expression comes from when people cannot afford what is being asked of them. And right now, I don't think the taxpayers can afford what we're potentially asking them to do by going ahead and replacing this roof. Okay, I'm off my soapbox.
Okay, is there any further questions, comments, or discussion on the amendment to change the contractor and the type of roofing? Okay, nothing heard. I want to review this one more time. We're voting strictly to change who we would use and the type of roofing system we would use if the board in the second vote votes to replace the roof. So, and there will be a second vote after the amendment has been dealt with. Jared, we're going to need a roll call on this one as well for the amendment.
Cinda Brode?
Let me clarify. All we're doing is changing the name of the contractor in that motion, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, then yes.
Julia Tamarki Kukrow?
Yes, if my understanding is correct with Cinda, all we're doing is changing the name, yes.
Yes. Tom Harley?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mrs. Leeper?
Yes.
Mrs. Lowry?
Yes.
Mr. Schroeth?
Yes.
Barb Barker?
No.
Tammy Blank?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-1.
Okay, so the motion on the table now is to use Mr. Davis and the Duralast system at $594 and change to replace a roof on the East Pike Elementary School. Is there any further discussion, comments, or questions related to whether or not we're going to replace the roof on East Pike? Okay, hearing nothing, I have three reasons why I don't think we should do it at this time. I agree with Tom that we can't make this kicking the can down the road ad infinitum or some unlimited amount of time to do that. But I think we are in a unique situation. There are three reasons why I think this is a good thing right now to simply repair the roof and then consider it again next year. Number one, I believe that there is still a feeling in this community that the impact of the pandemic plus our economic situation of this county is not in the best of shape right now. And I believe that the majority of the taxpayers will take the position that repair it right now. Once we get beyond this and begin to look at the recovery of the county, of the Indiana White Township, Shalopta, and Armstrong, then I think we could maybe take a more serious look at spending those heavier dollars. The second thing is we are looking at a deficit in our budget. I think we need to hold on to as much cash as we can until we get and see where the budget shakes out next year and what that impact on the deficit is. And the reason I want to do that is I would like to propose, depending on what that hit actually is, to take some funds from the general fund to help pay for this roof. And that brings me to my third point, in that we borrowed $10 million from the taxpayers of this community to start down the path of a new school. At this point in time, the only thing we have to show for it is a new entryway at the East Pike Elementary School And yes, we did some repairs or some issues at the senior high school as far as the chairlift and the life skills room. And I'm not disputing the need for that. My fear is that we will nickel and dime the remainder of this bond money and wind up spending it mostly on maintenance items and not actually give the taxpayers and the students of this district something that's going to improve their educational programming. And so I also want to hold back on this till we see where the budget is and to make sure that we've protected the balance of that bond fund. Those are my comments. Are there any final comments, questions, or discussion before we call for the vote on whether to replace the roof? Okay, nothing heard. Jared, let's have another roll call. And let me be clear, this will be on whether to replace the roof or not to replace it. Go ahead, Jared.
Julio Tamarki Kukuro,
I vote no.
Tom Harley,
No.
Mr. Kerr, Mr. Kerr,
Yes.
Mrs. Leeper,
No.
Mrs. Lowry,
No.
Barb Barker,
No.
Tammy Blank,
No.
Cinda Brode.
No.
Motion fails 1 day.
Jared, I'm not sure whether you counted my comments before we called for the vote as my vote or not, but
I'm sorry, Mr. Schroth. Your vote?
my vote is no.
Motion fails 1 day.
Okay, at this point in time, I think everybody's in agreement that we have to do something. Terry, do you wish to make the motion to repair the roof at this point?
Sure. That the board approves Dunkel Roofing as the contractor to repair the roof on East Pike Elementary at an estimated cost of $12,250.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded by Tom Harley to repair the roof at $12,500 with Dunkel. Is there any comments, question, or further discussion by the board members on the issue of repairing the roof?
What if while they're, go ahead, Cameron.
I just want to say again, I'm still frustrated with our lack of 3 bids. I understand this is not as big of a ticket item, but I just feel that when we're spending taxpayer money, we really need to get more than 1 bid. And yeah, that's it.
Is it also necessary to amend this motion to include Greg to have some latitude that while Dunkel is there, if they find other leaks, that they repair them?
I'm certainly okay with that, Terry, as long as we probably have some sort of limitation on it.
I'd like to ask Greg if there's other roofers in the area, Greg, that could do this work that you've worked with in the past, or is Dunkel the only one?
There are some other ones. I believe Ground around Greensburg area that we could get some prices on. That's not a problem. And in the Dunkel roof, we did have, I know it was mentioned several times. It says due to the limited thickness, this was in the Dunkel proposal, under his note. It said due to the limited thickness of the existing stained and varnished roof deck, the varied taper insulation thickness and unmarked electrical conduit laying between the existing insulation and roof deck, Dunkel will not bid a roof system that requires a mechanical attached roof due to inevitable damage the roof fasteners may likely cause to the hidden conduit and.
But Greg, we're not asking for that now. We're talking about repair work.
I know, yeah, and I said yes, I can get that. They kept coming up. That was listed. That's why we didn't have a second of the same likeliness. They would not do that. So,
Okay,
but yeah, I would definitely get an estimate from another roofer. Normally we've used Dunkel because instead of trying to get multiple, if you're trying to fix a leak and you're looking for a price, it'll continue to leak until you fix it. So that's why we've used Dunkel mainly for that. We have used another roofer a long time ago. I will contact them to get an estimate. Actually, I'll try to get 3 estimates on that same repair.
Then I move that we table this until the next. You need to take a vote on that, Walter.
Okay, you moved to table, Tom. Cameron, do you want to second his motion?
Absolutely.
Yep. We need a second on this before we can vote on it.
Great, I'll second.
Okay, so there's no discussion under tabling. Go ahead with the roll call again, Jared.
Tom Harley,
Yes.
Mr. Kerr,
Yes.
Mrs. Leeper,
Yes.
Mrs. Lowry,
Yes.
Mr. Shrove,
Yes.
Barb Barker,
This is voting to table it to get more estimates for repair, correct?
yes.
I'm going to say no.
Tammy Blank,
Yes.
Cinda Brode,
Yes.
Julia Tamarki Kukuro,
Yes.
motion passes 8-1.
Can I make a comment real quick? Can we please make it a practice to get more than 1 or 2 quotes, bids on any kind of work that we're doing? We've had this conversation and it is exhausting that we have spent over an hour on this topic only to end up tabling it because we didn't have more bids when this has been raised before. And I'm just frustrated, and it's probably because I'm tired, but I just needed to feel like I needed to put that out there. So thank you for listening.
Uta, thank you for your comment. I certainly agree with it, but I also kind of understand from a contractor's point of view. In this particular case, they may want to walk away from it and then just not do a bid or a quote in this particular case. So it's a little bit of the, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't always make them drink. But your point's well taken. Julia, I think audit and finance is next.
Well, that was a hard act to follow. We had an audit and finance budget workshop meeting on May 21st. And I think Jared hit all, I think everybody was present for that. If you didn't see it, you can go on YouTube. and watched the budget workshop. It was very interesting, including a interesting discussion about debt restructuring, which I don't think the committee wants to do right now. Then I do thank management, particularly Jared and his team, for getting us from 3.5 million. We're down about $1 million now from that deep hole we were in. So things are getting better. We have several motions tonight. I think we can take, I don't know if anybody has any preference, but the debt payment might be the one on 8.4 that we might want to take separately, but I'll do it whichever way people want to do it. Oh, anybody have an objection to taking all of them at the same time? Because we went over the debt payment one at the budget workshop. Okay, hearing no objections, I move that we approve motions 8.2, approval of bills, 8.3, designation of the agent resolution, and 8.4, the 2021 debt payment motion.
Second.
Okay, moved in second. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or discussion on those three motions? Okay, I think we can vote again in the negative. Hearing none. If you object to any of those motions, please say no at this time. Otherwise, the chair will assume that your vote is yes. Nothing heard. The three motions pass unanimously. Okay, our next section, Randy. Okay, we're down to closing. Okay. I'm sorry we took so long, but 9.1 is a discussion item for future board meetings. And I think we're at a point where we need to begin to think about how we want to open back up and begin to have in-person meetings. And I would like to propose that we, in fact, do that at our June 22nd meeting when we approve the budget. What I would, given the lateness of the hour, I would like to suggest that perhaps Mr. Vukovic and his team could prepare some suggested ideas on, whether we do it in the East Pike multi-purpose room, social distancing, and perhaps we could have this discussion then next week after the buildings and grounds meeting.
Walter, if I may.
Do I hear anything? Yes, sir. Go ahead, Tom. Okay, Tom apparently pushed the wrong button. Julia, your mic's hot.
Sorry.
Walter, I'm back. I keep getting bounced off here. Hey, what I was thinking is that my first question is to Ron. Are we actually allowed to use school facilities for a public meeting before July 1st? Can you answer that question?
Yeah, I would, and I would say yes, we are. It's just for direct instruction is what the limit is, but for board meetings, I can tell you that I've had physical board meetings in a couple other places already.
Walter, what I'd like to suggest, and make a motion if I need to, is that we refer this to the Buildings and Grounds Committee, and they work on it at the next meeting on, I believe this is coming Monday.
Yeah, and just if I could just add my 2 cents, the meetings that I've had in person have been in the auditorium where we've been socially distant and allowed the audience for public participation to also be socially distant, sitting one every maybe 2 or 3 seats, something of that nature.
Y'all, we had a conversation at the policy and personnel meeting, that said that we can't do anything face to face until the plan is approved, which is our phased reopening health and safety plan, and that it couldn't happen before July 1st. So I feel like us having an in-person meeting on school property on June 22nd would be in conflict to that.
Ron?
Honestly, I would disagree. That safety plan is for, again, you're talking about instruction, athletics, academics, for board meetings and those types of gatherings. Again, we've had other school districts that have already been having those types of meetings in the auditorium.
And that's what I was going to say. Junior high or senior high auditorium might be a good spot for it.
So
We did wear masks though, just to throw that out, that the board did have masks on when we did those board meetings.
So the main reason I suggested June the 22nd, Uta, was because of the approval of the final budget. I think that's a serious enough topic that we should try to do it at, with everybody in the same place. I'm okay if the will of the board is to wait till after July the 1st, but I think that if we do that, we have to have the first meeting our only meeting in July as a face-to-face, if for no other purpose than to show leadership and to show our students, our parents, our residents that we can operate in a physical environment, even with the possibility of the pandemic still swirling around us. But how about would you be okay, Uta, then if we had more of this discussion next Monday night at Buildings and Grounds and try to resolve the issue then?
We can resolve it tonight. That's fine.
Oh, never get it resolved then.
Walter, if I may,
Tom, your mic is off.
Thank you. The governor's guidelines for multi-purpose meeting rooms in the green phase is it's limited to 90 people maximum and 36 square feet per person. They recommend the 6-foot physical distance, and that's about it. Registered participants only. So you can't bring food to share, Cinda.
Okay.
Okay, but the restrictions on the green phase are fairly nominal at that point. So again,
correct.
Less than 90 people, we could probably pull that off under the governor's guidelines.
Okay, so how do the rest of the board members feel about this? Try to get a consensus of where can we go ahead and try to hammer some of these details out next week at Buildings and Grounds as to what this looks like? Is that all right with everyone else?
Yeah, I would certainly like the administration to bring something to react to, bring a proposal to the Buildings and Grounds so we don't have to create it from whole cloth. And I trust they'll do a good job with it.
I agree.
I agree.
I agree also. I just want to make sure that we're doing everything safely, because I will continue doing Google Meets rather than come and not be socially distanced and not be wearing masks, not taking all precautions.
Okay, at this point in time, are there any other comments on the board about future board meetings at this point? Hearing none, we'll move on to 9.2, public comment on agenda items. Okay, hearing None of those. We had some enclosures. This evening, we also had an executive session that was held Thursday, May the 21st, 2020, to discuss personal items. An executive session that was held before the meeting to discuss personal and labor relation items. Our next board meeting will be June the 22nd at 7 p.m. to discuss general purposes. Excuse me. Buildings and Grounds Transportation will be next Monday, the 15th of June at 5:30. Audit and Finance, the 22nd at 5:30 as well. May I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Second.
That was quick.
Okay, I think that's reflecting the late hour. At this point in time, we'll vote again in the negative. Anybody objecting to adjourning the meeting? Very quickly, since there were no objections. Maybe my mic was off, but we're adjourned at this.
Thank you, Mona.
Good night, everybody.
Night.
Thank you.